And with the human skill, we are talking about your know-how. I am an engineer. Prof is an energy engineer. That is why he can be a visiting professor in Joburg. And that's why he can serve on a technical committee at the AU. It is his technical, his human skill. And as knowledge changes every day, so do we have to change what we know. It is said that the learned does not exist because when change comes, learners find themselves equipped to deal with nothing. When there is a change, the learned, they find themselves equipped. They are learned. So they find themselves equipped to deal with nothing because there is change. That is why we need to be a learning people. And to be a learning person, you need to be flexible. You need to understand that you don't know it all. Because what we know now is history. You know why? I asked without failure. But when it comes to explaining now and the future, it has the probability. You need to know that knowledge is dynamic. It's always changing, and we need to pursue it and take it so that we can always be afloat. The next thing, which is very important, is what? Relationship, relationship, and relationship. I believe there are many things that your personality stop. Relationships can open the door and keep that door open for you. So many people who are good, they have titles, professor, whatever. They are so good, but no, they're not making it as much as they ought to. They are not growing. They are just in the pile. Yeah, I know many professors who are just in the pile because they just rose through the ranks. They just published and got to where they were. You may have that qualification, but it takes a relationship to tell you there is this avenue here. It takes another relationship to open that door for you. It takes another relationship to put you on that committee. It takes another relationship to recommend you for something that you never thought about. So relationships are so important. Then it comes to the spiritual skills. These spiritual skills are so important. It is not about religiosity. Spirituality is not the same as religiosity. Bigger than you. So we have a message. So that is spirituality. Spirituality is called into being when you realize that you have gotten to your wit's end. You are now at the crossroads. You can't help yourself. People cannot help you. Relationships cannot help you. What you know cannot help you. That is when you call spirituality into being. It is said that if there were no God, it would have been necessary for man to create one. Because it really gets to a point where you know that you cannot rely on yourself alone. When I started my doctorate, I was in I was in a workshop in Brussels, and we had a professor who is an atheist. And one of the first questions he asked us is, what is your sanctuary? We said, sanctuary. We looked at each other. But this man doesn't believe in anything. How does he talk about a sanctuary? He said, yes, you need a sanctuary because it gets to a time when you need someone to lean on. So that's someone to lean on who would be human beings, but it could be the transcendent, which calls into being your faith. And I always recommend, from a personal leadership point of view, C. Maxwell calls it the mastermind group. People to lean on. And each year, I review my own mastermind group. And there are people who are in my mastermind group without knowing they are there. I have masterminds in America, in Australia, in the UK, in Europe. I have in Ghana. I have in Nigeria. I have them. That's when I am at my wit's end, I know I can trust them for a particular thing. When I am at my wit's end, I know I can take a call and call a friend of mine in the US. A mentor, someone I look up to. If it is relationship, I know who to call. If it is financial decisions, I know who to call. You need a sanctuary. But above all, you need something to believe in, that when you are at your wit's end and no one can help you and you cannot help yourself, you can close your eyes and say, I know that I can. I can do all things because someone that I don't know is always there for me. You need that spirituality. Next slide. So, when you have done all of this at the person, you need to know as a leader the maturity level of the people. And in leadership, when we talk about the maturity level, we are not talking about age. We are not talking about experience alone. Two things: competence and commitment. And with competence, we mean attitudes and skills. So when we talk about the maturity of the people that you're going to lead, you need to understand their competence level. You need to understand their commitment level. You need to understand where they draw their motivation from, whether from the inside or from the outside. The people who draw their motivation from the outside are the people who need to be told what to do. The inside, they are the people who don't need to be told what to do. They are the next thing a leader needs is to enact ownership. You need the people to own the vision because you can't run with it alone. The next thing is for a leader and the members to use psychology. You see, without psychology, you can't get people to do what you want them to do. And lastly, for leadership to work, we need to understand the sources of power. Each one of us have power. We have power. I don't know, next slide, let me see. Why am I supposed to talk about the misconceptions? I will talk about this before, I will talk about some of the misconceptions before I come to this slide. There are lots of misconceptions about leadership. One of the key conceptions is that the leader has absolute power. It's a lie. No leader, no matter how autocratic the system can be, no leader has absolute power. Leadership is shared power. It's negotiated power. Now, you, the leader, when you are conscious of the fact that leadership is shared power yourself, it is a reality. Pardon me to use the word. You can manipulate the system because it's power. So, power, you have two types. You have authority and you have influence. Authority is based on legitimacy. It's legitimate power. Either you got that legitimacy from elections or from appointment or by selection, or you worked your way into a position in a formal structure. You are there. Once you are in that position, you have that legitimacy, you have authority. And we'll talk about authority very soon. Authority is very dangerous, so hey, we'll talk about it. It's positional and it can be coercive. But let me say one thing. You see, authority is so powerful, it can make and unmake you. In fact, even if that authority is for 1 minute, don't joke with it. Because that 1 minute authority can destroy your life or put your life on a pause for some time. Let's say you met a policeman, and this, I was watching a video a couple of days ago. It's a policeman in uniform, couple. He was by the way, and a medical doctor was rushing. I don't know if any of you saw that video. A medical doctor was rushing to the hospital, and the doctor jumped the yellow light into the red light. So it was yellow, he passed, and it became red. The police stopped the doctor. The doctor tried to explain that he's been called for an emergency at the hospital. The policeman said, "What do you mean? No way." As they stood there and they were getting ready to put the man in, the man's phone kept ringing. They were waiting for him at the hospital. So eventually, a senior man came and said, "You let him go." The doctor rushes to the hospital. When he got there, the child that he was supposed to attend to had passed. But as they were standing and looking at, the situation, and the doctor was feeling so sad about it, someone entered the room. It turned out it was the policeman, the couple who had stopped him, and that was the couple's son. Now listen. Authority is so powerful, it can make and unmake you, but it is a double-edged sword. It cuts forward and cuts backward. So when you have authority and you're using it against people, you need wisdom and tact. The next one is influence. Influence is so powerful. I don't know which is more powerful, though. As for authority, you can see it and you can plan for it, isn't it? Influence is so dangerous. Influence is so without people seeing your fingers in it, that is influence. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So it is based on relations, it is based on effect, and it is inspirational, it's motivational. It, so if there is a negative motivation, it could be a negative influence. If there is a positive, it would be a positive influence. Next slide. Okay, so I just put a few of the sources of power there, just to touch on them. There is resource power. He who controls the resources controls. There is positional power, and that is based on authority. We spoke about that. There is expertise power. I know who I am in such a way that in your field, when people are looking for someone, it has to be you. And you need to make up your mind. When I started, I came from a science background. I did chemistry. So I have a first degree in chemistry from the University of Cape Coast. And then I came to the University of Ghana to do food science. I worked at Food and Drugs Board then as a regulatory officer, but in science. Now, when I decided to go into academia, I wanted to teach quality management. When I got to the interview, blessed memory, Mr. Aban, I was in the interview for an hour and a half. They quizzed me. And he said to me, young lady, you don't have any business background. And this is a business school. You sound convincing. So we are going to give you an opportunity. But if you do not prove yourself, you would be out. And I looked at him and I said to him, sir, this is a challenge and I accept it. Walking out of that room, I made a promise to myself. And I said, in 10 years' time, if they mention 10 people in Ghana in quality management, I should be one of them. If they mention 10 people in Africa in quality management, I should be one of them. And by God's grace, I happened to have written the first book of 400 pages published in America, appeared in the New York Times in 2016. By God's grace, we introduced the first program in quality management in this country. But that is not the reason. On Sunday, I visited a church. And when the bishop got up to speak, he said, I learned that when it comes to quality leadership, you are the one to look out for. And I smiled. And I said to myself, thank you, God. Vision accomplished. Next vision. So you've got to purposefully. I had a goal. I said in 10 years. And in that 10 years, I should become a professor of quality management. And by God's grace, I did. Your expectation. You see, there are some people in the organization. You need to fear them all. See, they have power with them. You see, when you go to certain places and you need to make an impact, sometimes you don't need to talk to the people who are at the top. You need a security man. They know a lot. Oh, hey! You need a driver. You need a secretary. Now some secretaries, they see the thing and they read it before the will see it. So, these people are powerful. And depending on how much power you have, you can negotiate part of the leader's power. Don't go and practice that one, no. Then there is trust power. But I want to talk about associate power. You know, associate power is that power people have, and by association, they can get anything they want. And oftentimes, too, it is only a perceived power. They don't really wield that much influence. There is a story, and this is a true story, about a politician in Nigeria. Businessman. He financed the governor's campaign. The governor won. So they were going to do the inauguration of the governor. The governor asked him in a meeting before the day, "What would you like me to do for you?" The businessman said, "Oh, Oga, I don't want anything, no. Now that day at the inauguration, you see, when you are talking, I want you to turn to me and come and whisper something into my ears." Hey, the governor said, "Is that all?" He said, "That's all." Hey, do you know the power of the governor coming to whisper something into your ears? That gesture alone is enough to open doors. Okay. Then I've already spoken about social capital power, but let me talk is power of promise. See, power of promise can get people to do anything for you in anticipation of what is to come. Hey, once you are still anticipating and there is goodwill, oh, people will die for you. Next slide. All right, next one, please. Okay, next one. Think big and make sure it's strategic thinking and strategic management. The difference is the scope of thought. Next one. Next one. Okay. Next one. Okay. Now let me talk about the myths a little. So some of the myths are that many people think having a big idea is strategic leadership. It's not. That you have a big idea that cannot happen is thinking. And many people think that having a strategic plan is equivalent to strategic leadership. It's not. That is why a lot of the strategic plans are not being implemented. It is about action. It is about ownership. It is about people being involved in the entire process of leadership. So strategic leadership is about thought, action, and problem solving. That you have an idea which is good and you are taking action does not mean there will not be any problem. In fact, the problems will start the moment you start. So you need to be prepared and ready. You see, your mindset has to be ready. Problem solving, problem solving, problem solving. As you sit in any position of leadership, know that half of the work is what you want to do. And the other half of the work is solving problems to make it happen. Next slide. So I just wanted us to look at this in an human or financial resources. This one is a tough one, eh? Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Okay. So I just wanted to share this from C. Maxwell with you. He says the vision, some people never see it. They are wondrous. He said some people see it, but they never pursue it. VC spoke about it. People see it, oh, but they never pursue it. They are followers. Some people see it and pursue it. They are achievers. Some people see it and they pursue it and they help other people to see it. They are leaders. Next one. Okay, next one. Next one. Preparation, the timing of it, the focus of it, and the consistency. Quality of resources, particular. Okay, next one. Next one. Okay, so vision without action and purpose does not make any difference. Next one. But this one I say passion and purpose without resources is a miscarriage. And often when we talk about change, I believe we are talking about change in people, change in positions, change in profits. We are talking about change in policies and procedures. We are also talking about change in environments. Next slide. But when change is introduced, particularly in an organization, oftentimes these are some of the reactions. There is either denial. Me, I have an MBA. I have an MBA. Me bahache. Now me bahache. This MBA is my title. I have been doing it in a particular way all the time. And now you are coming to tell me we should change. Denial. Embasso. Some people, it fuels anger in them. Others, we will resist it and they will move heaven and earth. And in an academic environment, some are going to their unions, some are going to their how do you call it, the council, some are going to GTEC, some are going to the ministry. Hey, it's not easy. I was with a colleague vice chancellor a couple of months ago, and he said something that amazed me. He had a seemingly trusted deputy vice chancellor. Now, when he turned retiring, he wasn't yet at the retirement age. And this is a true story. He, according to the constitution, you must have your age must be such that you can finish a full term. But he had only 2 years. So in his mind, oh, did I say something wrong? No more story. No more story. But you see, in the system, we ought to be very, very tactful about change. Now, what I was going to tell you happened in Tanzania. I'll tell you that story later. So there is resistance, there is indifference, and there is acceptance. Okay. You need to understand who has accepted the change. Next slide. Next slide. I'll come back to this slide, but let's Really? The slide before this one? Okay. So let's take an organization like this. We have GTech, we have the council, we have management. These are the stakeholders in the change process, right? Next slide that we see here. They could be sponsors of the change. They could be change agents and champions of the change. There could be various political actors. And I want us to deal a little bit with the political actors and how to handle the political actors in the situation. And before you enact the change, you must know that people can have a lot supposed to be. Okay, next slide. Okay, so when we look at, I want to in the change process. The first is the sponsor. And we have two types of sponsors. For every change, there are two types of sponsors. We have the authorizing sponsor and reinforcing sponsor are the individuals who take it upon themselves to champion it. Let's say that's built reinforcing sponsors. Who were they? Who? Those people. Like a ministry may be, how do you call it, an authorizing sponsor. They would bring the bill, belongs to them. As a leader, you need to identify those people if you want your change to succeed. You just need one or two of them. And this is that everybody cannot enact what he needs to enact. A leader must not aim to please everybody. You see, I say the followers own small. I say the leaders own small. Because the truth of the matter is that in a system, you don't rule. It appears. It applies. You need at least 20% of committed people to move the system. But most importantly, you need everybody's involvement. You know, there was an interview in an organization, and the HR manager forgot to tell the security man that there was going to be an interview at that place. Now, the security man locks up the place normally in the evening. But on this particular day, when the security man locked the place, he forgot and kept the keys in his pocket. When he got home, he had stomach upset. So he couldn't come back to work on time the next day. People had been invited for the interview. They went, sat down. The HR manager was going in circles, calling the man he was not getting. Eventually got the man and said, "You, why are you not at work? Don't you know that there's going to be an interview? Where is the key? Blah, blah, blah." She went on. And the man said, "But I wasn't aware that there was going to be an interview." The lady said, "Shut up. When did we start telling you about interviews?" Fair enough. He doesn't need to know about the interview. But the interview was abortive that day because the man was not around. Now you have identified your sponsors. You need to identify your change agents and champions. They are the people who support, and they are knowledgeable about the organization, and they will help you to succeed. Let me say this about leadership. In every leadership, there is an in-group and an out-group. Out-group. Hey, even Jesus, excuse my language, had an in-group and an out-group. He had power to decide whether you want to be in the in-group or the out-group. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Oh, what has happened? Okay, what I wanted to do is far away, but I will start talking. I'll talk about this. Now, there are other actors beyond this two that we have mentioned in the system. Now, as a leader, if you want to move them to your side and have adequate people to 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 actually succeed with a change, you need to move away from dictation. From detection to what? Conversation. And detection is where we are telling people you need to solve problems are the solution of the problems. To do that, some of the practical things that, okay, so what do you think can be done? You ask people, what is the problem? They tell you the problem, don't give them the solution. Ask them, what do you think can be done? The same way, if you want to lead from the bottom through influence, yeah, don't ask them with a smile. You see, like in the house. If now I become the mommy and then I go to my husband and I start instructing him and telling him, and I go with a smile and I say, oh, big daddy. I say, big daddy, so this thing, what do you think? You sit there and say, I don't know. What do you think? You see how it works? Ah, we are powerful, oh. So, it is the same principle. You want something from the Oga Pata Minenebe Fiso. So, you know what? In a certain institution, there was a lady who was working, and this is a true story, in a registry. She's been there for very long. She knows the system like nobody's business. And there was a leader, a VC. This That's when we talk about it in Spain. No, today there's no office politics. Today we are doing change politics. Okay, so the lady went on and on and on. One day, the VC came back to the office in the night. The lady doesn't work in that office, according to the VC. The VC found this lady looking for something, maybe a document or a file or whatever it is, in the VC's file cabinet. Then she started sweating. You can imagine what happened from there on. And the lady was very ready to fizzle with the man. The lady marked time for 8 years. Listen to me, this is a reality. Another VC came. She had not changed her attitude. Let's assume that the lady had assumed that political party A was in office. So I don't like this VC. It could be anything. Nobody knew. But another VC came. The lady had not changed her attitude. It appeared the lady showed her true colors. She marked time for another 8 years. How many years of marking time? 16 years. Why do you want to mark time for 16 years? The choice is yours.